What's happening, everyone? JayShockblast here, and check it out. Last night, I got to see The Eternals, the latest entry for Marvel in their cinematic universe, and I gotta say, it was a movie. I think the biggest thing for The Eternals is that a lot of people are going to go into this movie and they're not going to know what it is. The Eternals have been a Marvel property for a very long time, created by Jack Kirby. And I think that, for a lot of people that are like twice my age, maybe, it's something that they kind of grew up with a little bit, but I don't feel like the Eternals have been a focal point in the comics for a while. They've tried to bring them back over the last year and kind of get people prepared for this, but I don't think the vast majority of the movie-going audience actually reads the comic books. I certainly had every opportunity to try to look into these characters before I went in, and even I didn't. And I wanted to, but I just didn't, So I think that's going to be the biggest problem that hampers this movie going forward, because I'm sure you're aware that a lot of people that are putting out reviews are bombing it. And after watching the movie, I can tell you that I understand why, but I think they're being a little dramatic. So, the biggest problem that the Eternal suffers from is they really, really have to nail the opening and get everybody to understand who they are, why they're here, and why we need to care. And I think the biggest disconnect is that while I do believe they were able to do that in this movie, it was really long and hard to get there. And it wasn't always interesting. I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's just sometimes boring. And it's not its fault. I think the second movie that it seems like will be made will benefit from this kind of slow-paced lead-in to making us understand who the Eternals are, what they're all about, and all their powers. I think that's going to have a payoff in a second movie that I hope would be far more interesting, but ultimately this movie does definitely suffer because of it. Now, I do want to say it has a great cast. I mean, Angelina Jolie and Salma Hayek are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, and that's crazy to me. Those are two of the biggest actresses of the 2000s, you know what I mean? And to see them in the MCU is crazy. And I thought they were both really great in their roles. Salma Hayek plays Ajak, who is the leader of the Eternals, and she was very maternal and, really perfect for the role. I loved the way she played it. I thought it was very well. And Angelina Jolie was Thena. And when I think of Angelina Jolie, I think star of the show, right? She is very, very typically your number one, maybe number 1A or B in any movie that she's in. But in this movie, she was fifth or sixth down the line. She was not the focal point, but she was a major character, obviously, and extremely powerful. And I think that's the big takeaway from that. I'm looking forward to seeing all these characters kind of expand themselves. So essentially, the story of the Eternals is they are put on Earth 7,000 years ago by the Celestials for reasons. They think they're there to destroy the variants. They're there hunting the Earthlings and watch the Earthlings kind of grow as a society and make sure the variants don't come back. Not the variants, the deviants. I'm sorry. I got my Marvel shows mixed up. The deviants. So that's basically it. There's a huge plot twist in the middle. Things are not as they seem, and they end up having to save the world. Make a decision and save the world. I don't really want to get too spoilery, but that is the basic gist of it. All of the different Eternals have different powers. Some of them, like Cersei, she can manipulate, the environment. So, basically turn rocks into sand, or rocks into water, or rocks into butterflies. That's a joke from the movie, kinda. And then there's that's Gemma Chan. She was fantastic. Gemma Chan Cersei is basically the star of the movie, along with Richard Madden's Icarus. You may know Richard Madden from Game of Thrones. He was Robb Stark. And I have to say, my favorite part of the movie, and I just wanted to scream it out, is when Icarus and kind of shows up when Cersei and Dane Whitman, played by Kit Harington, who knows nothing, Jon Snow. Dane Whitman obviously is Black Knight, by the way, and that is heavily teased in this movie. So Icarus shows up while Cersei and Dane are out and about, and Cersei and Icarus had a love interest in the past. So I was bothered that Robb Stark was banging Cersei, and when he finally gets to walk up to Jon Snow, he's like, I don't know who you are. All right, maybe that was funnier to me, but I don't know. I guess I just didn't do a good job of explaining it. But it was a good joke. It was a good joke, guys. All right, anyway. So Kumail Nanjiani, who was Dinesh in Silicon Valley, amazing show, was Kingo. I thought he was actually fantastic. Some of his stuff was some of the most interesting parts of the movie, and he, turned himself into a Bollywood actor, and I actually really loved that scene that he was in, and I think it's mostly because I know him as Dinesh, you know what I mean? And I thought that he was really, really great. And then we've got Leah McHugh as Sprite, Brian Tyree Henry as Fastos, Lauren Ridloff as Makari, Barry Kuhn as Droog, Don Lee as Gilgamesh, and I think that's all of the different Eternals. So it was good stuff, man. I think the few things that stuck out to me is it really and truly felt like there was a checklist in the movie, and they made sure they checked every single box to cover like everything, make sure we have everybody represented. And it doesn't bother me because these characters don't mean anything to me, but it does seem like there were some factors of the characters past that was changed. The one that I will take on from my perspective is Makari was portrayed as being deaf. And I appreciate that, but as somebody that's hearing impaired, I've had 12 operations on my ears. I suffer from a lot of hearing loss. I don't need them to show me up there, but I'm not everybody. And if it didn't bother me, but like if somebody gets something from it, I guess that's cool. But I don't know. I just feel like it did feel like they were trying to make sure everybody could watch this movie and say, hey, that's me. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't complain, because in a movie where very few people are going to care about who these characters are going in, maybe that's the perfect time to do something like this, so that hopefully they're not doing it and trying to change characters that have existed that people do care about. So I'm in between on that. So the big problem that this movie has is that in order to get people to understand what's going on, they have to go through a process, and they have to basically introduce all the characters. And while I really did enjoy seeing their portrayal of ancient Aztecs and ancient Egyptians and all these kind of things, that was definitely fascinating to me to see that on the screen with some of the visuals. It's hard to get through. There's just some scenes that are hard to get through, and they're necessary, but the movie does suffer for it, and there's not like this big payoff at the end. The big final battle and everything is kind of cool, but because it's all coming from characters that didn't have enough time to really resonate, I didn't feel special about it, and that's not their fault. I think they did a good job with the movie. It's a movie, and you know what, that's fine. Okay, maybe don't go see it in the theaters, maybe wait until you can watch it on Disney Plus or something like that. That's fine. Okay, I think the movie is worth seeing. I just don't know that if it's worth dropping $50 at a movie theater to go with getting popcorn and a drink, because that's a lot to ask for a lot of people right now, especially given that some people don't enjoy going in with COVID restrictions and whatnot. So I can understand people skipping this one. I do think it's worth seeing though, and some of the biggest reasons that I think it's worth seeing are the end of the movie and how it kind of sets the pace and the place with some new characters, one of which we already know is Kit Harington, who will be the next Black Knight, or the Black Knight, Dane Whitman, and that is established in the mid-credit scene and right at the end of the movie. So that's awesome, and I can't wait to see that, because Black Knight's a really cool character. And I think a lot of people are going to be talking about the voice in the mid-credit scene, and when you see it, you'll understand it, and I can't wait to figure out who that is. And then there's an end credit scene, which I'm not going to talk about at all, okay, because it's pretty epic. It has somebody who is very, very prominent showing up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You maybe already know. Please don't say it in the chat, in the comments, but I think it's actually perfect, and I'm very interested to see where this Eternal goes in the MCU and how they use him. And that's all I'm gonna say. Very good intro. The mid and end credit scene honestly are worth going to see the movie alone. I thought they were some of the really cooler ones, even though the character at the end, you should know, all right? You should know. His brother was pretty prominent, all right, in the MCU. So you should know who he is if you've followed the comics at all. But I'm going to leave it at that. And other than that, I mean, I would say this movie is about a 6.5 out of 10. It's got some good visuals. The acting is very well done. I think they did the best job that they could, with a set of characters that, let's face it, are kind of Power Rangers, like they all have their little powers they call on, and they're all different, and they all come together. When our powers combine, we are Captain Planet. And that's basically what it is, so it's like, I liked the movie. It was just hard to get through. So I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people are making it out to be. It's just different, and it's just establishing characters. Well, I feel like when we go into these Marvel movies or DC movies, we have a general understanding who most of the characters are, so it's not really much of a surprise. Whereas this one, I feel like a good 97% of the population is going to go into this movie and have no idea who anybody is. Even Dane Whitman, all right? And honestly, giving them 3% is probably generous. It's probably even lower than that. So in any event, I hope that you enjoyed this review. I'd love to know what you thought of the movie, and I definitely think you should see it. So we'll see ya.